Hello, I'm Itila. In this video I want to teach HTML by showing examples. So I've prepared some test cases to expose how HTML works. It's a very compact tutorial, nevertheless it discusses all the concepts you need to learn about HTML. We will not create meaningful projects, but rather some experiments to understand HTML uses and limits. You can follow me and create the same examples, or watch until the end, then go to your laptop to create your own experiments or project. Now if we open Visual Studio Code, go to File, Open Folder, and open any folder that you want to work in. For me it's Workspace on desktop, select folder. I also opened the same folder on the browser. It's empty now, and I will create new HTML file. Let's name it new.html, and let's make it bigger. Inside the file I will hit exclamation mark and enter. Visual Studio Code will create empty HTML document for me. Let's discuss this document a little bit. The first tag is doc type, which implies which HTML version we are using, HTML version 5 here. Then I have the HTML element, the language is English, and I have head and body inside it. First in head I have this meta information. The first one tells that the cassette encoding is UTF-8, and then I will make the document compatible with the old Internet Explorer version like 8 and 9. The third one for setting the width of the document exactly the same width as the browser. And last I have the title document. Now I will open it in the browser, new.html. I have the same path and then the name of the file. Sorry, I forgot to save it. Save and refresh. I have the same title on the browser tab, document. The document is empty now because the body is the element which is responsible for all the content inside the browser. I will choose another title, this title, and this content. Save and refresh. Now I have another title on the browser tab and this short phrase in the content. Now you don't need to think a lot about this setting because it's the same for all the HTML documents. And as you have seen, I have just created with simple click in Visual Studio Code. It's just a boilerplate, it's just the same for all the HTML documents, and I'm not thinking on making any change on it in the future. Now the body is the place where we will make most of the work, because at the end of the day the browser will look at the body to create the content of the page. And to show you how the browser translates the body to create the content, I have some examples to discuss together. Now if I have 3 words, each words in separate line, I will save and refresh. The browser shows them after each other, and that's because the browser escaped new lines in the text. If I want to show each one in separate line, I have to put new lines separately, which with the HTML element. This is the BR. BR is a new line. I will create a new line after each content, and now I have them like this. Another way to create content in separate line in HTML is to use the div element. And now each div reserves the whole width for its content. I will refresh. I have each content in new line. I have similar element to div, which is the heading. Heading work exactly like div but has different styling. Now the browser shows them as heading. And if I want to show the format exactly as I created in the HTML, I can use the pre element, and now the browser will keep the white spaces and new lines as the text is written in HTML. Let us delete everything from the body and discuss this single div element. Actually, HTML is static and has very limited styling possibilities. To make it more dynamic and more elegant, we apply JavaScript and CSS beside it. But to apply JavaScript and CSS to specific element on the document, we have to identify them. That's why we have the ID and class attributes. ID must be unique in the whole document, and class may be the same in several elements. If I have another div, I may not set the ID 1, so I set it 2 for example, but it's okay to have the class special. Now I have the possibilities to select the first element by its ID and to select both of them by the class. And I can apply CSS to this class to make it with specific format or specific color or any CSS attribute I want to set, and I can set specific action to this ID, for example. For now we will not discuss CSS and JavaScript, but I just wanted to show you how we select our element. Let us move to the second set of elements. And here first I paste button, input type text, input type number, input type password, and here input type range and input type checkbox. I will save and refresh. Each one of these elements expect input from the user, but each one of them offer it differently. In the button I can click. In the input text I can type text or number. In the input number I can write just number and no text. In password I can write text or number, but it will be hidden until I click here. And in range I can set range. In checkbox I can check and uncheck. Let's reset them. Actually, when I interact in the browser, I expect some response. And to define any response, any interactive response, I need to write function in JavaScript. JavaScript is not our object in this tutorial, but I will show some entrance to showcase how we do it in the, or how to how do we integrate it in the HTML. HTML allow us to set some event. So here in button, for example, it makes sense to have on-click event. And in this inside this quotation, I will write a short JavaScript function, alert click. Now I save and refresh the page. When I click, I have this response because I set it here in JavaScript. And for input, I can set on input Save and refresh. Now I make any change, I will have this response. But actually, do I need the function with each new letter entered to the input, or just when I finish editing? I can set another event, which is on change. On change will be triggered first when I finish editing on the input text. I will refresh. Now it just triggered when I finish editing. Although I first mentioned events with the interactive elements, but the truth is we are able to add events to any HTML element, like div for example. And here I add div with on a click. I will refresh, and when I click on it, it triggered exactly like button. The last two elements I want to show are image and table. So let's paste them here. Save and refresh. For image, I took Google logo, and for table, I took some mock data. So to show an image, you have to provide the address of the image where you load the image from. For me, it was on internet. I provide a link to it on the internet, but you also can save the image on your PC and then set the path to the image on the PC. And second, I give alternative text, so if I couldn't load the image for any reason, I will show this text alternatively. I will edit the links so that the browser cannot find the image, and refresh. Now the alternative text is shown. I will set it back, refresh. I'm also able to set the width to make it bigger or smaller. Or make it too small. And image is one of the elements that doesn't need an closing tag. So if you notice, I opened the tag with img, but I never closed it. And last we have table, and actually to create the table you need several elements. The first one is table, which is the container of all the other elements, and then inside this table element we can create set of rows. Inside each rows we have either table header or table data, and all together create the table view in the document. For now it doesn't have very fancy style, it doesn't look very good, but we will discuss styling later in CSS. It can be argued that we haven't explained all the elements, and the answer is, of course we haven't. Why? Because you don't have to know all the elements. Learning HTML is not about memorizing all the elements, because they are always available on W3 School, all of them and all the time. And if you need any one of them, you can go there, try it yourself, or copy paste it in your document. Now make your own experiments until you feel confident with HTML, then you move to CSS JavaScript tutorials.